Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm excited to bring you the 16th episode of Mixed Media, The Paper Wishes Way. Today, we're going to be working with rice paper. Now, this is a really fun medium and one that works beautifully with mixed media techniques. So we've got some gorgeous designs from our friends at Stamporean. I've got 3 projects to share with you today, and these will all use papers from the Country Blooms collection from Hot Off the Press. This has 12 sheets of double-sided papers, plus another sheet of matching cutouts. The papers are gorgeous, and they go perfectly with the rice papers. We'll also be using some Dilutions paints to add a little bit more depth and dimension. As you can see, we have a lot to explore today, and I'm really glad you're joining us. So come play with us. First, let's take a look at these rice papers from Stamporean. So we're going to start with the Wallpaper Imagine design. Just take a look. Absolutely beautiful. Really nice collaging on here. You've got some words, some patterns, and lots of beautiful design. So that's the Wallpaper Imagine. We also have pressed flowers. There's the Heart Frames collection, and this one I'm going to be using a lot today, so you'll be able to take a closer look at that. We have the Forest Flowers and Fruits, really beautiful all over design, or of course you can take out various elements of the sheet. There is the Botanic Poppy, really bold, bright colors on this one, really pretty. We have the Lavender Fantasy, and I'm going to show you a little demo with this in just a minute. Again, really beautiful all over collaging. To go along, we have the Lavender Vase, so you can see lots of coordinating images on there. And finally, we have the Sea Star. For you steampunk fans out there, I think this is a really beautiful design. You can, again, use various parts of this. You can also take advantage of the collaging on here as well. So if rice paper is something new to you, I think you're really going to like all the creative effects that you can achieve simply and easily. I'm going to move these aside and bring in a sheet of the Lavender Fantasy so we can take a closer look at this. So I'll turn it this way. Maybe a camera angle can get a little bit better there. You can see the all over design. And rice paper is a translucent paper, which means that you can, of course, see through it. That's why I've got some white paper underneath here. It's almost like a cross between tissue paper and mulberry paper. So it's been printed, and these have been printed with really lovely collage designs. But you can see on the back here, you can even see some of the fibers in here. Now, because the paper is translucent, you're able to layer it so you can see some colors and patterns showing underneath, and that's going to create real depth. So if you want the images to be brighter, then you just need to put the rice paper onto a light colored surface. And if you want to blend in rather than stand out, go for a darker background. So I've got 2 samples that I'll show you here. It's the exact same image. Here it is on dark pattern paper, and here it is on white cardstock. So you can see which one is standing out and which one is kind of blending into the background. Now, rice paper is really easy to use. Because it is so thin, you can tear it, and you can get a really nice soft edge that will blend easily, like you can see on this one here. So to get a directed tear, rather than just tearing into it with my hands, I like to use a little bit of water. So I've got a cup of water here to the side, and just a regular paintbrush, a fairly small paintbrush. I'm just going to dip the paintbrush into the water and then kind of select a section that I want to tear. So I'm going to let the water soak into this, and I can sort of trace along some of the lines that are printed on here, and then just gently separate it. And this will give me a nice soft feathery edge. Now, if you bump into any of those fibers that we saw, you can just use scissors to kind of trim around that. And of course, you can cut out these elements with scissors as well. Okay, so then here we go. Got a beautiful feathery edge on here. And then when I get ready to glue this down to something, this will just blend right in. Really nice. Now I'll flip it over again. You can see where some of those big fibers are in there, and that's what I would need to just trim quite easily. Okay, so now how do you adhere the rice paper onto your surface? Well, it's really easy. So I'm going to bring in 2 pieces that I've got here. This is from the lavender vases, and this is a little piece of paper from the Country Blooms collection. Now, in order to glue this down, I'm using the Cosmic Shimmer Specialist glue, just a little bit of white glue. Now, Lene taught me to thin it with a bit of water before you glue, and I found that that really did make a difference in getting just the right consistency there. So I'm going to take my wet paintbrush and I'm just going to make a fairly watery consistency here. So I'm just blending this in. I don't want it too thin, but I want it thin enough so that it can really easily go onto my paper. And then all I need to do is just apply this to the paper. Now I do find in most cases it works better to apply the adhesive to the paper rather than to the rice paper piece, just because this is a bit thin and wispy. And then I just need to put this down. I like to smooth from the center outwards. That way I won't get wrinkles or air bubbles. So I can see I've got a little bit that's popping up here. So all I need to do is just tack that down. And then I go around the edges with my brush and a little bit more glue, just to make sure that I've got all of those edges down. And you can go across the front of your image as well, add a little bit of glue there, kind of like a decoupage effect. Super easy to do. And then you just need to let this dry. I did find that it was a little bit tacky for a while, and then when it's completely dry, it's perfect for handling, and you can add it onto your cards or your other projects. Okay, so now you see how easy it is to work with. Let's take a look at some project ideas. This card uses the Heart Frames collection on a 3-inch circle chipboard element. And because the chipboard comes white, all I need to do is simply apply my glue onto the chipboard, place my image down, let it dry, and then trim around the outside edges. Now with this image in particular, I wanted to add some definition. You can see that right around the edges here. So I used a little bit of Dylusions paint. I used the Balmy Night and a little bit of desert sand on a piece of cut and dry foam. So let's take a look at how easy this is to do. I'm going to move my card out of the way. This is how those chipboard elements come, by the way, and these are a lot of fun to use with the rice papers. I'm going to move these aside and show you one that I've already got my rice paper collaged on. So this is already dry. I've trimmed around the outside, so I'm ready to go. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Balmy Night and putting this onto my craft sheet. I just need to add a little drop there and some of the desert sand as well. And what I'll do is take my piece of cut and dry foam, and I'm going to start with the Desert Night and just pick up a little bit of this, and then just holding my chipboard piece along here, I'm just going to go around the edges. Now this is quite a lot of definition, as you can see, a bit more than what I wanted, a little bit too dark, as you can see here. So in this case, I'm just going to come back, pick up some of the desert sand, and go around to kind of soften that. That way I'm able to get a little bit of that beautiful dark blue coming through, but it's not too overwhelming. So here is my finished piece. Now again, I'll bring in my card project to show you, and you can see that it is mounted up onto the scallop chipboard element. And this one has been painted as well. This one has been painted with the Island Parrot. Now, as with our Balmy Night, I've kind of toned down that Island Parrot and used a little bit of the white linen paint to tone that down. So this is the white linen. This one is really coming in handy in my craft stash. So a little mixture of Island Parrot and white linen will give you this much softer effect that you see on here. Now, for the rest of the card, of course, we've got pattern papers from the Country Blooms collection. and some dazzles here as well as a dazzle message on here. Now the chipboard tag has a hole in it, and I've just tied some of my jute twine through here. Of course, the circle also has a hole in it, but I didn't need that, so I just kind of disguised it with some of that rice paper on there so you can't see where that hole is. Now for the card inside, you'll see another image from the Heart Frames collection, but this one has been glued directly onto pattern paper. Because of those feathered edges on the rice paper, the image blends in perfectly to the pattern paper. So the flowers that you see on here are the pattern paper, but the sheet music and the butterfly are on the rice paper. So it's a really nice way to get that beautifully collaged effect really quickly and easily. So you can see the contrast between the rice paper on a dark surface on the inside versus the rice paper on a light surface like we have here on our card focal. The surface of this project is an MDF tag from Sticks 2. This is a sturdy tag that will work nicely on top of a gift, and it comes in a beautiful smooth brown. Now I can use this as is, but I really wanted the teal section of the wallpaper Imagine rice paper to show up. So I first brayer painted the tag with a little bit of white linen paint. So let's take a look at how to do this. I'm going to move my decorated tag out of the way and slide out one of these MDF tags. These are a lot of fun to work with. Now I've got my torn rice paper over here. I'm going to set this to one side as well. I've got my Ranger mini brayer and of course my Dilutions paint. So again, using my craft sheet as my palette, I'm just going to put a little bit of the paint on here and roll this out so that my brayer is pretty much covered. And then I just need to brayer this on here. Now I want to make sure that I'm getting quite a bit of paint, especially up at the top here. So I'm just going to keep working this on, especially up at the top. Not too terribly worried about the center because I know I'm going to have some elements there. This is just going to give a nice light application. Again, unlike painting, brayering is going to give you smooth, even coverage, and you don't have to worry too much about a really long dry time. Okay, so this is about going to do it for me. And then I'm just going to clean up my craft sheet here. Now, while I'm waiting for my tag to dry, I can take another look at my rice paper here. So as we've looked at before, you've got lots of different sections on here, so you can really experiment with which areas you want to use in your project. Now again, what I'm going to do, let me just get this a little bit more cleaned up. I'm going to create that feathered edge. I've got it on this area here, but I want it over here as well. So again, just taking my brush and I'm going to just add some water along the edge and then up at the top as well. Okay, and then gently tear. So here we go. It's so easy to use, even on a little bit closer to the edge, which you might think would be a bit fiddly. It's really simple to do. Okay, so I think I've just about got this. And pull that off. And now I've got this beautiful rose pattern on here. I've got some collaged elements here as well. This is pretty much dry. We're going to go for it. So in this case, again, as before, we've been using our white paint. And I've got some of my paint here on a little plastic piece. I'll take my damp brush. Again, just add a little bit of water to that to get a nice watery medium. And I'm just going to apply this onto my tag. Okay, and I just need to do the front. I do want to make sure that I'm getting the edges and the corners of my tag because that's what tends to get handled a lot. So you want to make sure that that's going to be nice and secure. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm just going to pop down my rice paper. Again, working from the center and smoothing out toward the edges. And that will reduce the risk of any air bubbles. Although I have to say with this rice paper, I really haven't experienced many air bubble issues. And that can happen when you're doing decoupage. Okay, a little bit around the edges here. And again, I can coat the entire top of this if I want to. It's not absolutely necessary, but if you want a little added security, you can definitely do that. You can smooth down the edges along the sides of your tag as well. And there we go. Now, if I have any areas where it's a little bit too long, I might want to use some scissors when this dries and just trim that off. The other thing I want to do when this dries is edge this with some gold ink. And I'm using the Midas from Spectrum Noir. This is a gold pigment ink, and it just adds a really beautiful effect to this. So after this is dry, I'll just edge this with my ink pad, and then I've got a really nice effect. Okay, I'm going to bring back in my original project. Let's take another look at this. You can see the gold edging along here. You can also see how this is just blended into the white on the tag. It's nice and bold down here at the bottom. I've got more of the pattern paper going across the center, and I've also got this winged heart focal. Now let's take a closer look at this, because this is from the Heart Frames collection. It originally looks like this. You can see I just chopped it out with some scissors, and I wanted this to have a greenish tinge to it. So I first brayered a piece of white cardstock with the Island Parrot and some of my really invaluable white linen. So first brayered on that green and then a bit of white on top of it. And then once that's dry, just go ahead and glue this down on top. And then I've just used some scissors to trim around the outside edge, and that's going to give me this pretty focal as well. Of course, I've still got these other elements on here, which, as you can imagine, I have saved and will use on another project sometime. Okay, now the back of the tag is brayer painted with Balmy Night. Now remember, Balmy Night is a dark, rich blue, and so that's going to give me a really subtle effect. And you can really see where the rice paper has completely blended in here. And then I've got some of that beautiful teal showing up as well. Okay, then you can see as well just a little bit of ribbon or jute twine on here to finish it off, and some dazzles as well. I've got some dazzle script down here as well as borders going top and bottom between these pattern papers. Okay, there's one more project I want to share with you, so let's take a look. This last project is a mini folder. So you've got the opportunity to decorate the outside as well as the inside. And you can see here it's got two really fun little pockets. You could tuck in a card or a tag or a note, recipe, gift cards, so many creative possibilities. And this has been made with a cutting die. So let's take a look at that. This is what it will come like in the package. So you can see it's the mini folder cutting dies. Will come in three different elements. So you've got one die for the main section and then two other dies for those pockets. Now the finished size is 4 inches by 5.5 inches. And if you ever need a perfectly cut and scored card blank, well, you could use that folder piece on its own. So this is what it looks like. And then once you fold that up on the score line, you've got your folder or a really nice card. You've also got the two other elements. These are the pockets, and those are separate. And of course, you just need to score these or fold these on the score lines, and then you can simply glue them in. Now your pockets can go this way, which is kind of like the long way. You could also have them go the short way. So it's completely up to you which way you want to go with those. You could have one pocket, you could have one going vertically, one going horizontally. The choice is yours. So after you score those lines or fold those lines, then all you need to do is glue your folder together. Now you can hook your pocket onto the back, and you'll have these on the back here like this. I prefer instead to glue these right on the inside, so then that way you don't have anything showing on the back. To do that though, I really recommend that you use the extra sticky tape. That's going to do the job for this and hold everything together. But before I glue together my pocket, I always like to do my decorating first. It just makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to move aside my pockets and just work with my mini folder. Now for my original project, you can see my rice papers on here, but I've also got some brayer painting going on. So let's take a look at how to do that. I'm working with 3 of my Dylusions paints. I've got the Peony Blush, I have Desert Sand, and then to tone everything down, I've got that invaluable white linen. Okay, so again, working onto my craft sheet, I'm just going to put a little bit of each color down. Okay, so there's the Peony Blush, and here is the Desert Sand, and then a little bit of our favorite white linen. What would you do without white linen? Okay, so I've got those 3 ready to go. I've also got my mini brayer on hand too. So I'm just going to start kind of like we did with our tag. Start with the darkest color, which is that Peony Blush, and I'm just brayering it on here. And keeping in mind that I'm going to layer some rice paper on top, so I don't want this to be completely opaque. So I've got a lot of that beautiful pink on there, but I want to add in some of that Desert Sand. I love pink and brown together. I think it's a really nice color combination. Okay, so here we go. Also letting some white just show through. You can mix these two. I'm not letting the colors dry in between application either. So I could leave this as is and I'd have a really fun folder, but I know that I want to put some of my rice paper on top. But remember, if it's too dark, then I won't have my images standing out as much as I might like them to. So here's where the white linen comes in. And this is just going to mute things back. So you can see even just the difference between these two. Okay, like so. And because I'm going at this with a brayer, it's a nice thin application, which means it won't take very long to dry. So all I need to do is let this set aside to dry. I'm going to grab a baby wipe and just kind of clean a little bit of this up. Of course, in real life, I'd be putting this all to good use, as you can imagine. But for now, I'm going to take advantage of the easy cleanup of my craft sheet and just kind of whisk that up. Now, I need to let this dry before I move on to the next step, but I have one that is already dry and pretty much ready to go. What I like to do is decorate or brayer paint the front and then flip it over and work on the inside later. So I'm not working with 2 wet sides in one go. But now I can do my rice paper on here as well. So I've already torn a piece of this beautiful rice paper, which again works in some of those pinks and browns. Same process as before. I've got some of my white glue here, and I'm just going to get a little bit of water on here and add this onto the front. Okay, again, making sure that the edges and corners have glue on them so that nothing is going to get kind of peeled up as the project gets handled. Okay, so that's on there, and then I'm going to take my rice paper and just put this down. Again, working from the center and smoothing that out, and you can see how beautifully that coordinates. It's like those paints and the rice paper are meant for each other. Okay, then I'm just going to add a little bit more glue going around here, just to make sure that everything is really well adhered. Okay. And then, as with the paint, all I need to do is let this dry. Super duper easy to do. And you can see how this is blending in with the torn edges. This is my straight edge though. I didn't tear that, so I'm getting a nice crisp straight edge on here, which is also a lot of fun. Okay, I'm going to move aside my gluey piece here and then bring back in my original project, and we can take another look at this. So here I've got the pressed flowers as my background on the front as well as the back. So you can really see where some of that paint is showing through on there. Now back to the front, I've edged the folder with that gold metallic ink, and that's just going to give us a little bit of extra shine. The focal is a circle scallop die, and the scallop part has been inked with the metallic gold as well. And then this piece is just plain white cardstock. Now the heart is from the Heart Frames collection, and I painted a piece of white cardstock with peony blush and white linen, and then glued the rice paper on top, and then just trimmed away the heart. And this has been edged with our Balmy Night and Desert Sand creation, as we saw before. And I've got a dazzle going across the front. On the inside, you can see that the pockets were also brayer painted and layered. That was done before they were glued into the mini folder. So make sure everything is done and decorated and dry, especially before you start gluing. And again, I use that extra sticky tape on there so it will hold, and then I can still tuck things into those fun pockets. Okay, so with this last project, I think we have seen just how much fun we can have with rice paper. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're really glad that you're here with us. I can't wait to see what you create, so do be sure to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.